Acumen's programs that I consider maybe the secret sauce of our impact and success really is the Acumen Fellows Program. What it is essentially is an impressive group of social justice warriors, that's the way I think of them. They come into Acumen's work and they bring with them business experience, world experience, and they come in with this very strong commitment to using all that they know and all that they've experienced to strengthen the work of Acumen entrepreneurs. And one such fellow is joining us now, Dilip Kumar Pattubala. He's the co-founder of the Sukhibhava. I probably butchered that, so I'll let you pronounce it the right way, Dilip. It is his foundation. It's a nonprofit. It's based in Bangalore, and its mission is to eradicate all the stigmas that exist in so many places around menstruation, and in particular in marginalized communities. He's passionate, as are all Acumen Fellows in my experience, about building scalable solutions for problems that are often taboo within current paradigms. He joins us tonight to share a story of courage and compassion. Please welcome Dilip.
It was exactly 5 years ago. I was working for a social enterprise based in Bangalore, providing affordable solar lights to communities without electricity. It was one of those days when my team and I were in the communities. When a colleague who had recently joined asked me, "What do women in these communities use when they menstruate?" She was intrigued after she had seen a piece of rag cloth with bloodstains hanging in a bush. I too was taken aback by her question. In spite of me working in these communities for 5 years by then, I did not know how women and girls in these communities managed menstruation. I was embarrassed to not have an answer. However, I promised I'll come back with more information. So I went home, started doing research online to understand the menstrual hygiene status in India. I was shocked to know how blinded I was to such a massive issue in spite of being in the social impact space. I could not comprehend these online articles. Nearly 200 plus million women and girls in India do not have either awareness or access to healthy menstruation, even today. My first response to this was, how can such a basic thing be such a massive issue? I could not believe these numbers. So I reached out to my best friend, now my co-founder Sahana, and together we did a survey with 250 women in the urban slums of Bangalore, only to find that 82% of these women did not have either awareness or access to healthy menstruation. Furthermore, 6% of these 250 women used other available alternatives like newspaper, plastic, leaves, sawdust, and ash to manage menstruation every month. What we learned was this was not just a question of hygiene. This having a direct negative impact on the education, health, economic stability, and gender roles of these women. Beyond the lack of access, it was the absolute lack of education stemming around menstruation that took me aback even more. Some of these women did not know how many holes they had in their own bodies. They believed babies are born in stomachs. They were convinced that if they had sex with their partners when they menstruated, their partners would go blind. They even stayed away from their own babies for 5 days every month because they were told that if they touched their babies when they menstruated, the babies would succumb to an irreversible illness. These were communities hardly 2 kilometers away from where I was born and raised. I could not absorb this, and I could not let it be. So with nothing but $350 in my pocket and a determination that I want to do something, I quit my social enterprise job, ran a crowdfunding campaign, raised $2,000, and started Sukhibhava in June 2014. With a very naive understanding that if we sell sanitary pads, the problem is solved. Within 6 months, we had no clue what we were doing. And by then, we had exhausted the $2,000 as well. From mid 2014 to end of 2016 were some of the most difficult phases of my life. There were times where I would have less than $1 or $2 in my pocket. I would not have money to return home from a community visit. I would lock myself at home for weeks together because I did not know what to do, neither did I have the money to leave. My friends would then come from all the way from the other end of the city to brainstorm with me, drop some money in my pocket, and encourage me to get to work. All through, I knew we were missing something. There was something more to do, but I could not visualize what I wanted to see. It was around the same time I was accepted for the Acumen Fellowship. In the first seminar, Krishna and Bhavendra from the Acumen team asked us to draw our life maps and present it to a cohort of peers. This activity turned out to be far more intense and fearful than I expected it to be. As I illustrated my life map, I could visualize the moments that had brought me to this point. The more I thought about this, the more dots I could connect, especially with the work I do at Sukhibhava. Earlier, when people asked me why, as a man, I was working on something like menstruation, I would defensively respond to say, there's a gap in the supply chain, I decided to fill it. I feel so stupid about that response now. It wasn't a gap in the supply chain, it was a gap in my knowledge of who I was, and a gap in having a community to help me find my voice. It was that moment of realization and feeling comfortable in my own skin, I realized my passion in fighting oppression. Oppression that creates shame and makes people feel small and prevents them from reaching their full potential. Shame that is created around our identities and our bodies gives our power to someone else. And by being in spaces where we can speak our truth, we find an opportunity to reclaim that power. It was this understanding that redefined my calling in the menstruation sector. Me realizing why I do what I do shifted how I do what I do. My team and I realized that selling sanitary napkins was just one piece of the puzzle. We started to think about how do we build a sense of agency, confidence, sense of critical thinking, and inclusive communities, while we disseminate information for women to make informed choices. We at Sukhibhava now fundamentally believe that if we start talking about periods like a normal bodily function, a significant extent of the problem is solved. If we start talking, we will seek information, we will seek products, health, rights. With this understanding, we started to build an organization that creates leaders at multiple levels to solve this massive problem systematically. We identify women living within the communities we work with to become period didis or sisters. These didis are identified and trained to form groups of 10 to 15 women of similar ages and take each of these groups through a 5-point curriculum, engaging them about different aspects of menstruation. What we do is create safe spaces for these women and girls to come together, leave their shame at the doorstep, and talk about subjects they wouldn't talk about otherwise. Violet is one of our period didis. She lives in Rajendra Nagar, an urban slum in Bangalore. 34-year-old, mother of 4 girls, never got an opportunity to go to school. The first time I met Violet was in 2015 in an information session. Violet hesitated to even lift her head up as we spoke about healthy menstruation. She giggled her way through for the 90 minutes. Today, Violet is a regional coordinator at Sukhibhava. She has educated 5,000 plus women and girls about healthy menstruation. She has become an inspiration not only for the women in her community, but also to her 4 girls. As we got the fundamentals right, we started to think about scale. If there are 200 plus million women without awareness and access to healthy menstruation, we had to acknowledge that a Sukhibhava alone will not be able to reach them all directly. How are we contributing to the larger movement? That's how we came up with the Period Fellowship. Period Fellowship is a 15-month-long leadership journey that invites dynamic individuals to become the menstrual hygiene leaders of tomorrow. These fellows are identified and trained to go to some of the most marginalized communities across India to talk about periods and to build communities that are centered around menstrual hygiene. communities that carry a spirit of being fearless and a sense of pride for who they are and how they are. And these fellows, after the fellowship program, if they intend to take the work further, we help them to become periodpreneurs, entrepreneurs who want to build organizations centered around menstrual hygiene. To date, we have positively impacted 150,000 plus women and girls across India. And we aim to reach 1 million people in the next 4 years. But our work is far from finished. There's so much more to do. One of our recent aha moments has been that as much as we work with women and girls and build a sense of agency and confidence for them to talk about periods, they often have to return to their oppressive social hierarchies, either at home or schools, where the decision maker or influencer is unfortunately someone else, mostly men in the family. And because men hesitate to involve themselves in a conversation around menstruation, the process of change for these women and girls was becoming slower. So now we just don't work with women and girls, but we work with the community as a unit. We include men and boys in the conversation to move away from a traditional paradigm. What we are doing at Sukhibhava is building a collective movement by identifying period didis at a community level, period fellows at an organizational level, periodpreneurs at an ecosystem level. What we intend to build is not an organization, but an ecosystem that truly believes in the need for conversation and a sense of community around menstrual hygiene. It's time to loudly and unashamedly promote the need for better menstrual hygiene management. If you have worked, or if you intend to work, or even if you want to know more about this place, please talk to me. Together, let's make menstruation a non-issue for millions of women and girls in India once and for all. Thank you.